is from the Journal of the American Chemical Society, published on June 12th, 2024, so just 2 days ago. And it's entitled Mechanistic Rationale for Ketene Formation During Dabbing and Vaping. And the abstract reads as this. Ketene is one of the most toxic emissions identified to date. That's not necessarily true, but that's how they start out their abstract. There are emissions that eclipse the toxicity of ketene, but we won't go there. So, however, its high reactivity renders it challenging to identify. In addition, certain theoretical studies have shown that realistic vaping temperatures temperature settings may be too low to produce ketene. Each of these issues is addressed herein. First, an isotopically labeled acetate precursor is used for the identification of ketene with enhanced rigor in vaped aerosols. Second, discrepancies between theoretical and experimental findings are explained by accounting for the effects of aerobic experimental versus anaerobic simulated or theoretical pyrolysis conditions. Pyrolysis is when you heat up organic compounds in the presence of air. This finding is also relevant to explaining the relatively low temperature production of aerosol toxicants beyond ketene. Moreover, the study herein presented herein shows that ketene formation during vaping is not limited to molecules possessing a phenyl acetate substructure. This means that ketene emission during vaping of including popular fragrance such as ethyl acetate may be more currently known. So that's the abstract. Let me point out the chemistry on the whiteboard if you can see this. So what I've depicted over here is THC acetate. But the important distinction in this experimental setup is rather than just have acetate, which has got a CH3 group, it's replaced those H's with deuteriums. So it's got a CD3 group, not a CH3 group. And the reason why that's important is because in the thermolysis of that compound, what you end up getting is ketene with two deuteriums on it, right? And the two deuteriums are then transferred over via nucleophilic addition to something called benzylamine. So benzylamine reacts with the ketene, and now what they can find is that there's two deuterium atoms right here and right here that remain on the amide product. So that precludes the attack of the benzylamine directly on the deuterated THC acetate. So this is a very elegant piece of chemistry because basically what it shows is that there's a reactive intermediate that's generated when you heat up THC acetate. Now, ketene is pretty toxic, but the one thing that the article fails to mention is that if you have trace amounts of ketene in a dab hit that you're pulling into your oral mucosa, what's in your oral mucosa? Well, there's lots of water in saliva. And ketene is very, very reactive. So ketene will immediately react with any moisture or any water in your windpipe. So when you take that dab of THCO, right? So the acetate of THC, when you take that dab, if there is any ketene that comes off that's immediately going to react with moisture in your airway to produce acetic acid. Acetic acid is the acid that's in vinegar, right? So acetic acid does not have the toxicity that ketene does. So while this chemistry is very important and, again, done very eloquently, this is coming from the lab of Robert Strongen at Portland State University in Portland, Oregon. He's the fellow who published a couple of years ago that talked about vaping at high temperatures and the degradation that happens to make compounds like benzene and acrolein and things like that you don't want to be inhaling. So this is the same group that's basically looked at toxicants that are formed during vaping and dabbing. And again, very elegant piece of chemistry here because you're using, isotopically labeled compounds to basically identify a reaction mechanism. And that always gets organic chemists like me excited because it's difficult to actually prove a reaction mechanism. So how one molecule is chemically transformed to another, you can only disprove reaction mechanism. So what this study disproves is the notion that in this case, what's trapping the ketene, benzylamine, is directly reacting with the THCA or THCO. If it was reacting directly with THCO, it would see 3 deuteriums in the product. The fact that they only see 2 deuteriums in the product basically tells you that it is going through this ketene intermediate. Again, this is a very particular set of reaction conditions. It's probably going to be different if you try vaping this on a dab rig. But yeah, very important piece of chemistry. I think the implications aren't as dire as they may lead to believe in the paper because you're not going to be inhaling ketene. The ketene is going to immediately react with water in your mouth and create acetic acid. So that's the story today. Be interested in what you guys have to say about this. This was originally reported their preliminary results a couple of years ago, where they observed spectroscopically that ketene was being formed. Now they've actually proven it by trapping the intermediate and identifying the intermediate having 2 deuteriums. So again, that's Dr. Mark here from St. Michael's College. Be interested in what you guys have to say about this story.
So which one is better, THCO or THCA?
Well, I think what this says is that unless you want a mouthful of vinegar, maybe stay away from THCA. THCA acts as a prodrug, so it's not like a new thing. What you inhale is the acetate, and then what happens is the acetate undergoes hydrolysis to release THCA. And because there's a time lag to that, it affects what's called the pharmacokinetic profile of the drug in the body. So you may not feel it right away, but you might feel a little bit creeper, and then like an hour from now, you'll really feel it because of the time that it takes for the body to hydrolyze the prodrug and release the real drug, which is THC.
Mm-hmm. Mathieu St. Germain, our local bro science chemist, what do you have to say about this?
Yes, bro PhD.
I'm impressed and still digesting everything that Dr. Mark was saying.
Still digesting. Interesting.
Sounds like don't do dabs, smoke joints.
Yeah.
It sounds like this stuff makes you constipated, Mathieu St. Germain.
Yeah, that's what happens when you have a mouthful of vinegar.
Mm-hmm. I mean, isn't there something they can do for that vinegar taste though? Isn't there like some like fake terps they could add in there for that?
Spray it
maybe.
Jason's pushing spray packs, you guys.
Yeah, but I think the other point is that this vinegar byproduct, which again is what happens when ketene reacts with water, can also not just come from THC acetate, but can also come from other acetates. So geraniol acetate, for example, is a flavorant that's used that's got the essence of rose. Geraniol is basically the essence of rose. And so geraniol acetate is a derivative that, again, can undergo this thermolysis reaction to release ketene. So there could be other acetates in vaping products that aren't necessarily cannabinoid acetates, but acetates that are added to add flavor.